One way that NCBA works to grow beef demand is through Checkoff-funded research into things like beef quality and sustainability. Another key area of study is red meat yield. Here to talk about those efforts is Jessica Lancaster, NCBA's Senior Director of Product Quality and Safety Research. Jessica, let's begin with the basics. What is red meat yield and why is it important to the industry?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. As we think about how we grade cattle, there's really two ways. Quality grade being the first, and that's the one that our producers and even our consumers are really familiar with. The second is yield grade, and that's looking at how much product we're getting out of an animal. This is very much less known to our producers and certainly not known by stakeholders of the industry, and really the area where we have the greatest area for improvement to understand how much product or red meat are we getting from each animal that we produce.
Very good. And why is it so important to have Checkoff-funded dollars helping to fund research in this effort?
Yeah, the Checkoff plays a really important role. If we look at the beef industry long-range plan, we see that it's actually called out in a bullet point on there, which is really cool. We see that it's important to have technology, but also really utilize science to grow the understanding in the area. If we think about our product quality research program, it really has a rich history in looking at how can we find solutions for our producers to really get the value they deserve based off of the composition and yield of their cattle.
So I'm curious, what is the current data telling us about how these cattle are yielding and how does that compare to previous years?
Yeah, you might be a little surprised to know that the system we use today of yield grade was based off of studies in the early 1950s and 1960s. Cattle were very different at that time. They would be the height of about our belt buckles.
Exactly.
And it was 150 head that we used to base the system off of. We all know that things like management, genetics, and production have changed. So we've done Checkoff-funded research along the way to look at what are today's cattle yielding, knowing that yield grade is still directionally correct, but there's a tremendous opportunity to really capture the true yield and pay producers for the value of the red meat yield these cattle are producing.
We've seen record heavy carcass weights, and as we've grown that carcass weight, we've made fatter cattle. I'm curious, as we improve yield grades going forward, how do we make certain that we don't slide back in terms of quality grade?
I think that's a great call out. As we've worked in this effort, we know that keeping quality grade high is a non-negotiable. And so as we work to increase yield, or really the measurement around yield, it's important that we still have that focus on quality. We've seen through management selection that we can really make tremendous progress in traits. So providing producers with feedback in terms of yield will allow us to keep quality high, but also really increase the yield and payment of yield we're seeing coming out of these cattle.
You bet. And as I say, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And so the first step is getting the measurement correctly. Thank you for your leadership in this effort.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, if you want to stay up to date on NCBA's efforts in areas like red meat yield, sustainability, product quality, and nutrition, just visit the website beefresearch.org.